Hello and welcome everybody, and thank you guys for joining me once again. My name is Wilky and I'm here back with a quick follow-up video towards the video things I wish I knew before playing Kritika Online, because, well, with the release of this little posting, or letter I should say, by one of the staff members of En Masse, they basically invalidated one of the points that I am making in that video, so I'm trying to correct that. Unfortunately, YouTube has removed the annotation function, so I can no longer put annotations in the video directly, so the only way for me to sort of give you a hint that there's something, well, I miss, is basically through the description. And I'm also going to be using the info card so that also mobile users potentially get to know that some of the information in that video is a bit outdated already. Tough luck. By the time I made the video, I was still in closed beta, so I didn't know that. Anyways, without further ado, I'll post the link to this post, or this letter, as well as the forum post regarding that in the description, so you can take a look at that. Let's just dive right into it. So, closed beta wrap up and looking forward. So apparently they were at PAX East. I assume they had a booth there, because from the letter that I've read so far is that there have been a lot of people asking about Kritika Online, so there seems to be quite a bit of community on, or was a bit of a community in PAX East. I obviously wasn't there, so I cannot say from my personal experience, but at least that's what the letter gives out. So the first bullet point that's probably going to be important is this one here. We know the question on everyone's mind is, when is open beta? We can confirm that we have what we need out of closed beta and are ready to move on to open beta. The exact timing is still to be done. So what that basically says is that they got a nod, or, well, I guess enough, or at least usable and conclusive data as well as feedback from their closed beta test, so they are ready to be moving to open beta. So that's a very, very good sign. It seems everything they wanted to test, or at least a lot of the things they wanted to test, were tested, and they got the data to figure out issues, probably balance some things, you know, turn the sliders up or down, depending on how things were developing. But there's no exact timing, so we're basically left out in the blue. And personally, with that many changes they have written down, if you were to ask me, and that's a guess, that's just my gut feeling, I'll guess we will get open beta in July. I don't think we will get to play open beta in June, because there seem to be a bunch of changes that they did not anticipate that we're gonna get in our version. So I personally suspect that we're gonna be playing Kritika Online open beta on the European and American server for that in July, but as I said, this is just my personal guess. There's no confirmed date yet. So the biggest changes they are mentioning here is PvP. So they are trying to balance certain skills so that the damage numbers are not going to be too high, and generally they're trying to get closer to the Korean version, in which PvP matches last a lot longer than in our versions. If you saw my videos, or potentially anybody else streaming or making footage of it, depending on the gear and class and skills, some of these fights, or rounds I should say, were over in a couple seconds, and that's absolutely not how it was looking like on the Korean server, so they're trying to do that. From what I can tell, is we're not going to get the exact same patch straight away, but they're going to be making slight, or rather bigger, depending really on how much they can fix in. But there's going to be changes regarding open beta, so we're going to be seeing damage numbers, I suppose, scaled down in general, and potentially also some other balances that will bring our version closer to the Korean version that received a patch this March. And as I said, the guy that wrote the letter, he expected this patch to at least be 2 builds away, but apparently they kind of realized, well, PvP is a big part and a lot of the community is actually interested in it. So we're actually gonna try and make a bit of an effort straight away for open beta, so that makes me very happy. I suppose everybody who's playing Kritika for PvP is also going to be very happy about that change. But we don't have any exact information, so we don't know how the scalings are gonna be looking like and what exactly is going to be changed, but there's definitely something in the making, so that's very, very good information. Now, the next bullet point is what basically is invalidated in my old video, because I said in, I think the last point in my Kritika video, I mentioned that the most convenient, efficient, and fastest way to level in Kritika Online is to run hard dungeons, because the difference between hard and insane was merely the boss soul at the end that was different. In terms of gold drop and XP, it was identical. So there was no real reason to run insane or extreme unless you were looking specifically for those items. And now they changed it. Apparently, or at least from what this letter gives us, is they were impressed or even shocked, as they write here, that some of us hit 65 so quickly. I think I saw the first player hitting 65 on the second day of closed beta, so that's definitely very fast. And it seems that they do not want us to hit 65 as quickly. So what they're going to be doing is they're going to be changing the hard mode XP modifier from 8 down to 6. I get their sentiment that they don't want people to hit the cap so quickly. Personally though, I wish they would have just, increased the rewards for insane difficulty rather than nerf hard mode, because hard mode was very easily doable solo, and insane, well, depending on the class and your gear, and also the dungeon you're running. Like if you know Ilya, and I suppose some of you know, if you tried to kill her on insane alone, it was quite tedious. And now, basically what this change does is, not only does it slow down players who play solo and hard only, it also kind of changes the value of your rest points. Because rest points, for example, in C9, it was depending on the difficulty of the dungeons, you took less or more stamina. So a higher difficulty would give you more rewards and more gold and more XP, but also take away more stamina. In Kritika though, rest points are solely depending on how many rooms you're going to be clearing in the dungeon, and it does not make any difference if you run the dungeon on normal, hard, insane, it does not matter. You still use 1 rest point per room you're going to be clearing. So what that means is the most efficient way in terms of rest point usage is going to be running insane dungeons. And I recommend, I guess, if you're looking for the most efficient way in terms of how many rest points you're going to be spending in terms of leveling up, is to get at least a second player, or preferably even a full party of 4 people, and run insane dungeons together. For those of you who prefer solo play, hard mode, it's not like it's going to be a major cut, but some stages in the game were a bit of a slouch, and it kind of felt like you had to grind some dungeons repeatedly because you did not have the required level to receive the next quest. So I'm not entirely sure how this is going to be playing out. I suspect there might be a bit of issues with that. Personally, I never had to grind before 64, but keep in mind that I had the elite status running, so that gave me a bit of bonus XP. And we had the stress test rewards, so I also used some of those potions. I'm not entirely, as I said, I don't think that's the right move, but I do understand their sentiment that they do want to slow down things a little bit. I mean, the modifier is cut down by basically 25%. I took around 12 hours actual playtime, like actually doing dungeons and doing things in-game on my Doomblade to hit 65. So I suppose that's going to be increasing to 60 to 15 hours if I keep playing hard mode alone. Or I'm just going to be ending up playing in a party and running those insane dungeons for the best XP you can get for rest points. But that is basically the point that got invalidated, so the fastest way might not longer, or I'm not sure really, because hard mode is insanely quick to do, and insane dungeons are kind of tedious, especially since bosses and sub-bosses have a lot of HP in those modes. So I'm not sure if insane or hard mode, which of these paths is going to be the fastest, but what I can say, the most efficient way in terms of rest point usage is going to be insane in open beta. So that's just the thing that I really wanted to correct. The next point they address is the economy, and basically it seems that gold was an issue for a lot of players, and I think that wording, either it's confusing or that's a typo, because they say, so we will keep gold drops at 100% when your rest points have hit 0. And if you look in-game at the rest point bar, it says for the purple rest points you have 1000%, for blue you have 500%, and when you're at 0 you have 100%. So if you take that value and compare it to the one in-game, nothing really changes. So I suppose what they mean is that gold drop will always be the same regardless of your rest points, because that's the only thing that makes sense to me in that regard, really. Because gold drops do not only the rest points, or the bonus from the rest points does not only apply to gold drops like the gold coins you see lying around, but also, for example, to the gold you get out of the ending cards. So for example, if you kill the boss and you open 1 or 2 cards if you have the elite status, you can also get gold out of that, and that's also depending on your rest points. So personally, I suppose the gold drop is going to be the same throughout your rest points usage, but I don't know, it's just really strangely worded. We already suspected that, and the forums are inconclusive about that, but I suppose we will get clearance about that, but that's just the way I interpret it. And the other thing is that costume bundles, while they costed 2,000 creds, they are now down to 1,000 creds. That's good and bad, because some of you know that costumes can also be dismantled to get Kagerfeld badges. So there's already an uproar because, well, non-paying players have it now easier to get custom bundles because 1,000 cred is obviously half of what you needed before. But that also means that people who do use the cash ship to their advantage, so, well, pay-to-win players or so-called whales, will now have it easier to start spamming and buying costumes to salvage them into Kagerfeld badges. We do not exactly know how much of an impact that is going to be having, but there have been concerns voiced already throughout the community. Personally, I think it's a good change, but we yet have to see how much the difference between a non-paying player and a paying player is actually going to be. And there's also other changes that regarding the auction house, and that's probably a big deal because personally the auction house is really strange and I did not really like it that much. It was kind of weird to, I guess, navigate and use the search function. It's a bit wonky if you ask me. But yeah, they're going to change a couple things. Stabilizing hammers, which are the things used for enhancing, are now going to be sold through gold. So everybody who's not paying and using cred to buy them from the auction, from the cash shop, can now start buying them from the auction house through gold. The thing I don't really like about that is, personally, they should just remove any enhancing material from the cash shop in general. I don't think enhancing stuff other than protection items, but really the whetstones and hammers, they should not be in the cash shop in general. There should be in-game ways to get them. But that's just my opinion, really. So we'll see how much of an economical impact that's going to be having. And they will also, they say here in a future update, not an OBT, they will be setting a mid and max price for items on the auction house. So there's not going to be a free market. So people who want to rule the market by buying cheap and selling expensive or things like that is not going to be happening, because they are going to be limiting min and max prices. So the economy is, I guess, sort of more stable than in a traditional game. And they also say, hey, game economies are ever changing, so they will continue to monitor the changes and see that the economy is not going to go out of hand too much. And I really like that. We just have to see how these changes will actually affect our gameplay. Other than that, open beta will also have balance changes to Starhenge, which is the late game area. I'm not entirely sure what they mean by balance changes. I suppose they might make it easier. That's just what I suppose that's going to be happening. A lot of and more offerings in the store, so we're probably going to get more outfits, more pets. I suppose that's what they're going to be referring to. Other than that, this is the information that we have received so far. I'm sure there's going to be more information leaked as we get closer to the open beta. Generally, as I said, the point I really wanted to make is that there is an XP change between hard and insane mode now. So take the other video I made, at least that one point, take it with a grain of salt and realize that it's going to be different in open beta. Unfortunately, I did not see that coming. We did not have any information regarding that whatsoever. So that's just how it is. Anyways, that's as far as my input goes regarding the changes that we will be seeing in open beta. As I said, there's other changes that we have not yet witnessed, and I'm sure there's going to be a full plethora of patch notes coming towards us as we get closer. Anyways, hopefully you found this helpful. If there's anything else you want me to cover or anything else, feel free to let me know. And as always, hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video, and potentially also in open beta on the European server. So keep your heads up and see ya!